Before we begin, drop your city in the comments, and hit subscribe if you believe that even the smallest act can change a life forever. Ryder never asked for forgiveness, but one lost little girl gave him what no church, no judge, no prison cell ever could, a second chance at a soul. The sun was a searing anvil above Havenwood, hammering the asphalt into a shimmering mirage. Heat rose in waves, distorting the dilapidated storefronts and wilting the sparse trees lining Main Street. A solitary figure, a hulking silhouette against the glare, rumbled into town. His motorcycle, a custom-built beast of chrome and black leather, vibrated with contained power, its engine a low, guttural growl that seemed to challenge the oppressive quiet. This was Ryder. To the folks of Havenwood, he was a ghost, a rumor, a figure whispered about in fearful tones. They saw the tattoos snaking up his thick arms, the steel glint in his eyes, the hardened lines etched around his mouth, and they saw only trouble. He was the outsider, the man who lived on the forgotten edge of town, near the abandoned mill, a place where whispers said darker things happened. Today, Ryder wasn't heading to his usual haunt. He was navigating the blistering backroads, away from prying eyes, toward the dried-up creek bed where he sometimes found moments of brutal quiet. He wasn't looking for anything, certainly not for what he found. A splash of bright color, out of place against the muted browns and grays of the parched landscape. A small, faded pink backpack. He slowed the bike, his instincts, honed by years of living on the margins, prickling. It wasn't the kind of place a child would play. Not alone. He cut the engine, the sudden silence deafening save for the buzzing of cicadas. He swung a leg over the seat, his heavy boots crunching on the loose gravel. His gaze scanned the dry creek bed, then moved to the sparse cluster of thorny bushes nearby. And there, huddled amongst the desiccated branches, was a child. A little girl no older than 5 or 6, her small frame trembling, her face streaked with dirt and tears. Her bright pink dress, once vibrant, was now torn and smudged. Her eyes, wide and terrified, were fixed on him, reflecting pure, unadulterated fear. Ryder felt a familiar tightening in his chest, a ghost of an old ache he usually buried deep. He'd seen that fear before in places he tried hard to forget. He knelt slowly, deliberately, making himself small, less threatening. His voice, usually a low rasp, softened. "Hey there, little one," he said, his tone surprisingly gentle. "What are you doing out here all by yourself?" The girl didn't answer. She just stared, her lower lip quivering. He noticed the faint bruises on her arms, the way she clutched a grubby teddy bear to her chest as if it were her last lifeline. Something was deeply wrong. This wasn't just a lost child. This was a child in distress. He reached out a hand, palm up, offering it to her. His fingers, scarred and calloused, looked impossibly large next to her tiny ones. "It's okay," he murmured. "I'm not gonna hurt you. My name's Ryder." She hesitated, her gaze flicking from his face to his outstretched hand, then back again. Slowly, hesitantly, she unclenched her small fist from the teddy bear and reached out, her fingers barely brushing his. A tiny spark, almost imperceptible, passed between them. He didn't press. He just waited. And then a small, barely audible whisper. "Lily." He nodded, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Lily," he repeated, testing the name. "That's a pretty name. Are you lost, Lily?" She nodded, her chin trembling. He could feel the urgency building within him, an unfamiliar sense of protection he hadn't felt in years. But as he looked around, a chilling thought settled over him. No parents shouting. No search parties. Just the suffocating silence of the scorching afternoon. Something in this scene didn't sit right. It was too quiet, too desolate for a child to simply be wandering. A knot of unease began to twist in his gut. This wasn't a simple rescue. This felt like a dangerous secret. Ryder wasn't just a biker. He was a monument to hardship, sculpted by a past that had left him scarred and solitary. He lived in the skeletal remains of the old Havenwood textile mill, a sprawling, forgotten complex that mirrored his own internal landscape, broken yet stubbornly standing. His existence was a quiet war against the world, and more acutely, against the demons within himself. People saw the tattoos, the leather, the growling bike, and assumed a life of reckless abandon, maybe even crime. But Ryder's fight was against despair. He'd grown up in the city, in a neighborhood where hope was a luxury few could afford. His mother, a woman who worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads, had instilled in him a fierce sense of loyalty and a quiet strength. But the streets had claimed his younger brother, a bright kid lured into the wrong crowd, leaving Ryder with a crushing guilt he carried like a phantom limb. He tried to save him, tried to pull him back from the brink, but the system, the indifference, the sheer weight of poverty and desperation had won. After that, Ryder had abandoned the city, abandoned everything familiar, seeking a place where he could simply exist, invisible. Havenwood, with its sleepy prejudice and its forgotten corners, offered just that. He worked odd jobs, mechanic work, heavy lifting at the lumber yard on the outskirts of town, anything that paid cash and required minimal interaction. He preferred the company of his wrenches and the roaring engine of his bike to the sidelong glances and hushed conversations that followed him wherever he went. He was tired, not physically but soul-tired. He'd seen too much injustice, too many good people ground down by circumstances, too many promises broken. His empathy, once a vibrant flame, had been reduced to a smoldering ember, carefully guarded. He'd been hurt before by trying to care, by investing in people who inevitably disappointed or left. So, he kept his distance, built walls, and cultivated a reputation that kept others away. It was safer that way. Yet, seeing Lily, so small and utterly defenseless, had ignited something he thought long dead. Her fear was raw, uncomplicated, and it pierced through his carefully constructed armor. He didn't know her story, but he recognized the shadow in her eyes. It was the same shadow he'd seen in his brother's eyes before it was too late. He couldn't walk away. He picked her up, gently, carefully, as if she were made of spun glass. She was light, too light, and he could feel the fragile bones beneath her torn dress. Her head rested against his shoulder, her tiny hands clutching his leather vest. He didn't ask her where she lived. He didn't ask her name again. He simply started walking, carrying her away from the desolate creek bed towards his bike. Meanwhile, Lily's mother, Emma, was living her own quiet war, a battle fought on the fringes of society. Emma was a single mother in a town that offered few opportunities for black women, let alone single black mothers. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and waitressing at the diner during the day, barely making ends meet. Every dollar was stretched, every hour accounted for. Her hands were raw from scrubbing, her feet ached constantly, but her spirit, though weary, was unbroken. She had a quiet dignity, a grace that belied the immense burden she carried. Lily was her world. Emma had imagined a different life for them, a life free from the constant struggle, a life where Lily could blossom without the shadow of poverty looming over her. She shielded Lily from the harsh realities, making sacrifices Emma would never speak of, just to see her daughter smile. But Emma also carried a secret burden, a silent fear that gnawed at her, a mistake from her past that threatened to unravel everything she had built. She tried to care, tried to trust, and it had left her vulnerable, leaving scars that hadn't faded. She fought to stay hopeful for Lily's sake, even as the walls of her small life seemed to close in. As Ryder carefully placed Lily on the back of his bike, ensuring she was secure, Lily looked up at him, her tear-filled eyes slowly changing. The fear was still there, but a flicker of curiosity, of tentative trust, was beginning to emerge. She was watching him, truly watching him, not the monster the town saw, but the man who had knelt in the dirt and offered a gentle hand. Ryder, oblivious to the subtle shift, simply focused on getting her to safety. He didn't know yet that the threads of his quiet war, Emma's hidden struggle, and Lily's desperate innocence were about to weave into a tapestry far more complex and dangerous than any of them could imagine. He drove slowly, deliberately, taking the winding back roads, avoiding the main arteries of Havenwood. He knew the risk he was taking. Being seen with a child, especially a distressed one, would only confirm the town's worst suspicions about him. But for once he didn't care. The soft weight of Lily behind him, the faint scent of her little girl shampoo, filled his senses, pushing everything else aside. He was just a man doing what needed to be done. He pulled up to his mill, the hulking metal structure looming against the darkening sky. It wasn't a home, not in the traditional sense, but it was safe, isolated. He had a small, clean living space carved out amidst the machinery. He gently lifted Lily off the bike, carrying her inside. She didn't resist. He found some clean rags, warm water, and gently wiped the dirt from her face. He offered her a stale energy bar, the only food he had, and a bottle of water. She ate ravenously, confirming his suspicions about her distress. "Where's your mommy, Lily?" he asked, his voice still soft. She looked away, her small shoulders hunching. "Don't know," she whispered. "Bad man?" Her words trailed off, her eyes filling with tears again. Ryder's jaw tightened. He didn't press for more. He knew some things were too painful to articulate. He just held her, a silent, comforting presence. He knew he couldn't keep her, but he wouldn't let her go until he understood what had happened. He had to make sure she was safe, truly safe. And that, he knew, would be harder than anything he'd faced before. The next morning, Ryder woke to the sound of Lily's soft breathing. She was curled on an old, clean blanket he'd found, her teddy bear clutched tight. He'd spent the night restless, his mind churning, trying to figure out his next move. Calling the authorities was the obvious choice, but a lifetime of mistrust in systems made him hesitate. He knew how easily a narrative could be twisted, especially when it involved someone like him and a vulnerable child. He needed to understand. He made her a makeshift breakfast, warm water mixed with instant coffee heavily sweetened, and the last of his oatmeal. Lily ate slowly, looking more rested, less afraid. "You hungry?" he asked. She nodded, giving him a small, shy smile that pierced through his usual guardedness. It was a fragile thing, that smile, but it was enough. He decided to take her into town, but not directly to the police. He'd start with the local grocery store, a place where people knew everyone or at least recognized them. He dressed her in a too big flannel shirt and a pair of his old, patched-up jeans, hoping to make her less conspicuous. He put his old, faded baseball cap on her head, pulling it low. Then he wrapped his heavy leather jacket around her, its warmth and bulk a shield against the world. As they walked, Ryder kept her close, his hand resting lightly on her small back. He felt every sideward glance, every hushed whisper as they passed. He ignored them. He was focused on Lily, on the small hand that now instinctively reached for his. When they finally entered the brightly lit grocery store, a sudden, sharp gasp cut through the usual hum of conversation. "Lily? Oh my God, Lily!" Ryder's head snapped up. Standing near the produce section, a basket clutched in her hand, was a woman. Her face, etched with exhaustion, was now contorted in a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming relief. It was Emma, Lily's mother. The twist wasn't just that Emma was there. It was the raw, desperate look in Emma's eyes as they met Ryder's. It wasn't just relief, it was terror. And then, her gaze flicked, just for a split second, to the back of the store, to a burly man in a worn baseball cap who was now slowly turning away, trying to blend into the aisle. A jolt, cold and sharp, shot through Ryder. "Bad man," Lily had whispered. Emma rushed forward, sweeping Lily into her arms, tears streaming down her face. She held her daughter tight, rocking her, murmuring incoherent words of love and relief. Lily, for her part, clung to her mother, burying her face in Emma's neck. Ryder watched, a strange mix of confusion and satisfaction swirling within him. He'd done what he set out to do. He'd brought the child home. But then Emma looked at him again, her eyes pleading. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing her back." Her words were sincere, but her eyes held a deeper, unarticulated plea. "Please don't ask. Please don't look too closely." And then, just as the relief was beginning to settle over the scene, the side door of the grocery store swung open. Sheriff Thomas Miller strode in, his face grim, followed by two deputies. Sheriff Miller was a man of the town, fair-minded but traditional, a man who saw the world in black and white. He saw Ryder, the infamous biker, standing over a tearful mother and a traumatized child, and his mind immediately jumped to conclusions. "Ryder Blackwood," Sheriff Miller's voice boomed, cutting through the stunned silence of the grocery store. "What in God's name is going on here?" The twist was complete. Ryder hadn't just found a lost girl. He had stumbled into a hidden nightmare. And now, his quiet act of kindness had dragged him into the very public glare of a town that already judged him, with a secret that now threatened not just him but Emma and Lily too. The homeless man wasn't missing, the child wasn't just lost. The man Ryder glimpsed, the one Emma looked at with terror, was Lily's stepfather, Marcus Thorne, a seemingly respected man in Havenwood, known for his local construction business and his devout church attendance. But the twist wasn't just Marcus's hidden cruelty, it was the fact that Marcus Thorne had quietly, systematically, cut off Emma from any support, isolating her, making her financially dependent and silencing her with threats. He had been the one to lose Lily, a terrifying scare tactic meant to keep Emma compliant. And Emma, trapped and terrified, had been too afraid to report it, fearing worse repercussions. Ryder's appearance, seemingly out of nowhere with Lily, was both a miracle and a terrifying wrench in Marcus's carefully constructed control. The small kindness had just brought danger directly to Ryder's doorstep. The grocery store became a crucible. The murmurs rose, a tide of judgment washing over Ryder. He must have kidnapped her. He's that biker, that criminal. Why else would he have the child? Sheriff Miller, seeing the distressed mother and the notorious outsider, quickly moved to secure the scene. He placed Ryder in handcuffs despite Lily's desperate cries of, "No." "He helped me," and Emma's choked pleas. "He saved her, Sheriff. He brought her back." Ryder offered no resistance. His eyes, usually unreadable, now held a deep, simmering anger, not for himself, but for the injustice unfolding. He looked at Emma, a silent question in his gaze. She met it with a terrified shake of her head, a clear message: "I can't. Not yet. It's too dangerous." He understood. Her fear was palpable, a suffocating blanket. He was taken to the station, interrogated for hours. His silence, his lack of explanation, only solidified the suspicions. They brought in a child protective services worker, who found Lily clinging to Emma, too traumatized to speak coherently about what had truly happened. Emma, cornered and terrified, could only reiterate that Ryder had found Lily and brought her back, careful to avoid implicating Marcus. She knew if she spoke the truth she would lose Lily and potentially her own life. The news spread like wildfire through Havenwood. The local paper, the Havenwood Chronicle, ran a sensationalist headline: "Mysterious biker detained after child discovered, kidnapping feared." The whispers turned into shouts. Ryder, the quiet outsider, was now the town pariah, accused of a crime he hadn't committed, his act of kindness twisted into something sinister. His one call was to a pro bono lawyer he knew from his old neighborhood, a no-nonsense woman named Cassandra Hayes, who understood the precarious tightrope black men often walked in the justice system. She arrived 2 days later, a whirlwind of sharp questions and unwavering determination. "Ryder, why aren't you talking?" she demanded. "Give me something to work with." "She's terrified," Ryder said simply, his voice low. "The girl. Her mother. There's more to it." He explained what Lily had whispered, the glimpse of the man in the store, the look in Emma's eyes. Cassandra listened, her expression thoughtful. "This is a domestic violence case, then. She's being coerced." Meanwhile, Emma's life was spiraling. Marcus, enraged by Lily's brief absence and Emma's apparent defiance, intensified his control. He threatened to take Lily to ensure Emma lost her jobs, to destroy her completely. Emma was caught in an impossible bind: tell the truth and face Marcus's wrath, or stay silent and let Ryder take the fall. The weight of her choice was crushing her. Lily, however, was quietly watching, absorbing everything. She saw the fear in her mother's eyes, the way Emma flinched at Marcus's every word. She also remembered Ryder's gentle hands, his soft voice, the way he had been a silent, safe harbor when she was most afraid. The memory of his kindness, starkly contrasted with the escalating terror at home, began to solidify her fragile courage. The high point came at the preliminary hearing. The small courthouse was packed, a microcosm of Havenwood, buzzing with morbid curiosity. Ryder, in a faded blue jumpsuit, sat stoically, his face impassive. Emma, summoned to testify, looked frail, her eyes downcast. Marcus Thorne sat in the front row, a picture of concerned respectability, his presence a silent threat to Emma. Sheriff Miller presented the circumstantial evidence, painting a damning picture of Ryder as a suspicious figure preying on a vulnerable child. Cassandra Hayes, however, was methodical. She cross-examined Emma, gently guiding her, trying to give her an opening. "Ms. Jones," Cassandra asked, her voice calm, "you stated that Mr. Blackwood brought Lily back to you. Did he ever harm Lily?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "No, ma'am. He was kind." "Did he ever threaten you?" Emma hesitated, her gaze darting to Marcus, then to Lily, who was sitting with a social worker in the back of the courtroom, watching her mother intently. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken terror. Marcus shifted in his seat, a subtle warning. Then Lily did something extraordinary. She slid off her chair, walked slowly, deliberately to the front of the courtroom, her small hand clutching her teddy bear. She looked up at her mother, then her gaze shifted to Marcus. And then her eyes, filled with a sudden, fierce determination, fixed on the sheriff. "He pushed me," Lily's voice, small but clear, echoed through the stunned courtroom. "He pushed me out of the car. Daddy Marcus. He said I was bad." A collective gasp swept through the room. Marcus Thorne's face went ashen. Emma's eyes flew open, tears springing forth, not of fear but of profound, agonizing relief and a dawning strength. The truth, whispered by an innocent child, shattered the silence and the carefully constructed lies. Ryder, for the first time, showed emotion. A single, silent tear tracked a path down his stoic face. He looked at Lily, then at Emma, a silent promise passing between them. The blowback had shifted. The victim was no longer just the child, nor the accused biker. It was Emma, and her fight had just become public. The courtroom was no longer just about Ryder's innocence. It was about Lily's truth and Emma's freedom. Sheriff Miller, his face grim, motioned for his deputies to detain Marcus Thorne. The air crackled with both pain and triumph. The heart of Havenwood had broken open. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Marcus Thorne was charged. Emma, finally free from his iron grip, found a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Lily, no longer afraid, began to heal, her small hand often finding her mother's, a silent testament to their unbreakable bond. Ryder, cleared of all charges, was released. But Havenwood had changed. The courtroom revelation, amplified by Cassandra Hayes's relentless pursuit of justice and the widespread news of Marcus Thorne's true nature, had forced the town to confront its own biases, its own tendency to judge a book by its cover. The whispers about Ryder didn't disappear entirely, but they shifted. From suspicion they evolved into a grudging respect, then a quiet understanding. People remembered Lily's unwavering declaration. "He helped me." They saw Emma standing tall, no longer shrinking from shadows. The unseen hero had been unveiled, not through grand gestures, but through an act of simple, profound kindness in a moment of desperate need. Ryder, true to his nature, didn't seek accolades. He returned to his mill, to his quiet existence. But things were different. Emma started bringing Lily by sometimes just to say hello, to offer a home-cooked meal. Lily, no longer the terrified child, would run to him, her small arms wrapping around his leg, her laughter echoing through the cavernous mill. He would lift her onto his shoulders, and for a few moments, the hardened lines on his face would soften into a gentle smile. This moment, this quiet transformation, said something profound about us all. It spoke of the insidious nature of judgment, the way we project our fears and prejudices onto those who don't fit our narrow definitions. Ryder, the ruthless biker, had been an easy target, a convenient villain. But in his quiet strength, in his unwavering commitment to a child he didn't know, he had exposed the rot beneath the surface of a seemingly peaceful town. It spoke of dignity not as a privilege granted, but as an inherent right, often fought for in the most desperate of circumstances. Emma, the single black mother battling unseen forces, had reclaimed hers through a child's unwavering truth. It spoke of power, not the power of influence or wealth, but the quiet, revolutionary power of empathy, the kind that compels you to act when no one else will, even when it puts everything you have at risk. And ultimately, it spoke of quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need applause or recognition. The strength of a child finding her voice. The strength of a mother breaking free. The strength of a man hardened by life, who still found the capacity to care, to protect, to risk it all for someone else's innocence. It's a message that lingers, long after the sensational headlines fade, long after the shock gives way to understanding. It's a reminder that true heroism often walks in the shadows, disguised as an unlikely stranger, performing the smallest act of love. Sometimes the smallest act of love rewrites someone's whole story.